Well, I was out draining the little swampland last week with my tractor, Massey Mouse, and chainsaw, and a few other tools. And it reminded me so much of my time in Queen's Park, of trying to drain the swamp in politics. And of course, I exposed a lot of corruption, a lot of scandalous behavior, a lot of dishonesty, a lot of wrongdoing. But the political swamp just kept getting bigger and bigger. And I realized you can't drain a swamp while you're standing in the middle of it. Just can't be done. If you want to drain a swamp, you have to start from the outside first. But you also can't see the full extent of the swamp when you're inside it. You have to walk around and observe and look and analyze just how big is the swamp. And much of it will be covered up. There'll be overgrowth and weeds and scrub that will obscure and hide away just how big the swamp is. It's sort of like the iceberg analogy. What you see at first is only a small portion of the actual swamp. And that's what I've been doing for the last year now. Observing and looking, researching just how big the swamp is. We know the political swamp is full of corruption and scandal. Political parties, lobbyists, pollsters, bagmen, a lot of collusion with corporate interests and special interests. But we have other people. We have other smaller swamps that are attached to the bigger swamp. We have the swamp in our education, in our schools. I just saw this video. Take a look at this, where our young people are being taught in our colleges and our universities to chant and rant and rave while they're wearing their LGBTQ plus SW uniforms and paraphernalias and ranting about Nazis. But we see it also in our elementary schools, in high schools, where children are being convinced that boys aren't boys and girls aren't girls, and that you can be whatever you might want to be. That's not an education. It's a perversion. Is it not part of the swamp as well? What about our police officers? You know, we all remember those police officers over the last 3 years, the ones in Calgary who arrested and tackled a young hockey player out on a frozen pond, and the police in Ottawa who were arresting people for carrying a Canadian flag. Are they not also some of the parasites that we see in the swamp? They are benefiting with their handsome salaries and wages and not protecting or serving or upholding our rights and freedoms, but arresting people for walking in the park or playing hockey or showing and demonstrating patriotism. What about all our doctors and nurses who we saw dancing on TikTok videos, who had no patients in the hospitals, but they were overworked and hard done by doing TikTok videos? Could we not also ask, are they not parasites in the swamp? Our education, our police, our health care? What about our legions and libraries? Recently, they've been hosting drag queen shows for young children to be exposed to sexually explicit drag queen shows. Are they not also a swamp or parasites in the swamp that we've created in Canada and indeed the Western world? We can take a look at all these institutions and we can see that this big political swamp that we've created has a great many parasites in it and a great many other little swamps attached to the big swamp. Now, just what can we do to drain all these swamps that we have in Ontario, in Canada, in the Western world? Well, it's just like draining any other swamp, if we want to. And listen, swampland isn't much good for anything. Certainly not a place where you want to build a home and raise your family in the swamp. Certainly not a place where you want to try to be prosperous and grow a business. You don't do that in a swamp. It's also not a place where you can raise livestock or cultivate the land. Swampland is, well, it's good for nothing. And when it covers so much of our society, it's very harmful. So, how do we go about getting at these deep roots, these obstructions that are creating the swamp in our country? Well, one of the first things I would say is if you're a member of an established political party, they're the worst culprits. Don't join an established political party. And if you've been donating money to them, well, that's even worse. Turn off the taps and dry up the money supply to these parasites. And don't vote for them. Those are some simple things that you can do. You can do the similar things with our mainstream media, because they're certainly deep in the swamp as well. If you have a newspaper subscription or watch mainstream news, turn it off, cancel your subscription, and also unfollow them on social media. They sell their advertising based on how many times people click on their stories. Turn them off, unfollow them, and start relying on independent, trustworthy media, alternative media. And if you're a doctor, a nurse, a librarian, a police officer, question your actions. Evaluate what you've done and what you've been doing. And ask yourself, have I not become part of the swamp? Should I get out of this swamp and start acting honestly and upholding people's freedoms and providing good information and knowledge and not just coercion and fear and intimidation? But there's more each and every one of us can do. Give your elected members, your representative, phone them up. Tell them that you expect more than just a party parrot, that that's not what you voted for, that you want them to stand up and uphold our freedoms. And you want him or her not to be just a parasite in the swamp, deriving a benefit, but you want them to actually start draining the swamp as well. Because if they're not draining it, they're a part of it. You can also Send them emails. Maybe get a few like-minded friends together and go out to their offices and have a little rally about draining the swamp, and that this representative is part of the swamp. If we turn up the heat a little bit, we know parasites don't like the heat. They scurry away pretty quickly. So let's start turning up the heat and making it easy for some of these parasites to leave the swamp. Making it easy for the scum to flow away, so we get down into the deeper rock and roots and muck and quagmire that is holding us all back and making our freedoms murky and muddy, our faith and our families under duress. Those are all things that each and every one of us can do. And listen, we know if people stand up and start digging the swamp, cleaning it out, others will join them. There's lots of Canadians who don't like the swamp. There are still those that are getting benefits from the swamp, but there's many of us need to work together to bust out these obstructions to honesty, transparency, freedoms, and justice in our country, and make our land, make our country a greener, better field where it is and where we want to build our homes and raise our families. Together, we can start taking charge and start draining those little swamps. And together, we'll drain the big swamp. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure to like, share, and follow. And if you'd like to spend some time at Scuttlebutt Lodge, click on the link below. I look forward to seeing you here at the lodge.